Welcome back to the Explainer. Today, we're tackling JavaScript placement, mastering exactly where to put your code. Let's just dive right in.
Okay, picture this for a second. You click a link to check out a brand new web page, right? But instead of seeing that beautiful layout you're expecting, you are instantly smacked in the face with a glaring alert box. And it's just floating there over a completely blank white screen. You don't even know what website you're actually on yet. So why does an alert box suddenly pop up over a completely blank web page? Well, it's incredibly frustrating for sure, but it all comes down to exactly how browsers read your code. Okay, let's dive into this mechanic. It's known as top-to-bottom loading. Basically, browsers read HTML files sequentially, literally straight from the top of the document all the way down to the bottom. So if a browser is humming along, reading your code to build the visual page, and it suddenly hits a JavaScript tag high up in the document, like say up in the head section or at the very top of the body tag, it just stops. It halts rendering any of your visual HTML content right then and there, so it can run that JavaScript first. If that script happens to trigger an alert box, well, the browser fires that pop-up before the page even has a chance to render the background, the images of the text. It's kind of like a massive traffic jam for your website. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. If you place a script high up in the head of the document, the browser halts rendering and just fires the alert blindly on a totally blank screen. The user is left completely lost. But if you take that exact same script and place it at the very bottom of the body tag, all the HTML content above it actually gets to load first. The user sees the background, they see the structure of your site, they know exactly where they are. Then, and only then, the script runs and the alert pops up. You know, it is just a vastly superior way to handle the user experience.
So what's the quick fix here? Well, for tiny pieces of JavaScript code that are completely unique to just one single page, it's incredibly simple. You just paste it at the bottom of your HTML document right before that closing body tag. If you have a tiny little script, it's absolutely fine to embed it right there in the HTML. Because it sits all the way at the bottom, your visual content loads first, the user isn't kept waiting staring at a blank screen, and your script still runs perfectly without blocking anything important.
But of course, there is a limit. Once your script hits 10, 20, 30, or even more lines of code, that internal script rule we just talked about goes straight out the window. Keeping massive chunks of JavaScript jammed inside your HTML page is just a recipe for a messy, unmanageable project. When your code starts to scale up past a few quick lines, you really need to graduate to the professional standard of web development.
And that professional standard is externalizing your code into its own dedicated file. Why do developers do this? Well, first off, it prevents cluttering up your HTML document. Trust me, you do not want a massive wall of JavaScript totally messing up the readability of your structural HTML. Second, and this is a huge advantage, external files are highly reusable. If you want to use the exact same script across multiple pages, you're not endlessly copying and pasting it. You just link to it. Need to make a change? You update it once in that single external file, and boom, it automatically updates across every connected web page simultaneously. It's a real game changer. Plus, finally, it just keeps the whole shebang neat, tidy, and in a logical place.
Okay, let's move to and see how this builds. Externalizing your code is actually a super easy three-step procedure. Step 1. You create a brand new file and you absolutely must end it with a .js extension, something like test.js. That .js ending is crucial because it tells the browser exactly what kind of file it's dealing with. Step 2. You take your JavaScript code and paste it into this new file entirely on its own. Now importantly, you do not include the HTML script tags here, just the raw JavaScript logic. And step 3, you link that new file back inside your main HTML document.
So here is exactly what that link syntax looks like in action. You use the standard HTML script tags, but you add a source attribute, src equals quote, test.js end quote. What's really interesting about this syntax is the placement strategy. It uses a relative link, very much like how you link a CSS file. However, instead of putting it way up high in the head of your document like you do with CSS, you keep this script tag securely tucked away right at the bottom of your HTML body tag. The browser is going to render all your content, reach the bottom of the page, find this link, seamlessly grab that test.js file, and run the code without ever interrupting the initial page load.
So the crucial point is how our source material sums up this golden rule. Quote, if you have a small script, feel free to embed that script at the bottom of your page. Otherwise, externalize it and put it in a separate file, then link to that file at the bottom of the page. End quote. Did you catch the incredibly important recurring theme there? at the bottom of the page. Whether you embed a tiny script directly or link out to a massive external file, keeping it at the bottom is the absolute rule of JavaScript placement that we've established in this explainer. It completely protects your user's experience.
But is it truly an absolute unbreakable rule? What if you actually need a script at the top to load asynchronously alongside your HTML? Well, in certain advanced cases, you really do want scripts up top, but they need to be loaded in a very specific way that doesn't halt the page, an asynchronous load. It's a fascinating technique, but it is very much the advanced exception to our bottom loading rule, making it the absolute perfect topic for us to tackle next time. Until then, take these structured takeaways, go confidently organize your code, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.